Hey everybody, man, I've been wanting to get this news out since Monday, hoping that we had our podcast up from Sunday. I was crossing my fingers because right at the end we had a blackout there at Katy High School, and we found out yesterday that the podcast did not record. And so that's why it hasn't been up on our website or passed around via Facebook. So I actually recorded this video yesterday, and little did I know that it was in time-lapse mode. So this video actually exists in a condensed version of about 20 seconds. But it's very confusing because it's me doing this real fast and no sound. So I'm videotaping this today and getting this news out via video. But I wanted my friends and people to know that myself and our leadership team here at our church, as well as our outside board of trustees, we do feel that God is closing this season of ministry for Cross Community Church, and we'll be shutting her doors at the end of the month. Now, this decision did not come brashly, didn't come just like that. It's been something that we've been processing and praying about for a while. So real quick, I'll just kind of walk you through some things, and that way you'll be caught up to speed. Kara and I and our three girls, we moved here at Katy. It'll be 6 years this summer. And we had just this vision of planting a church. Really wanted to be here in Old Katy. That would kind of serve as this bridge for the older established Katyites and this newer generation and younger people who are moving in. We wanted to be that and to be a gospel presence here. And we've been able to do some phenomenal work of ministry, as well as just meet some incredible people. So we've had countless number of people who have come in and out of our doors, and God has blessed us with their presence, and maybe some of you who are listening, your presence. I'm very grateful for the people who had even just a short term with our church. But after about 2 years, so we went public in 2012 and had some great fruitful seasons of ministry. In 2014, it was the spring. It was a very rough spring where it was like a crack hit in the foundation of a dam, and water began to trickle out, and we started losing people in our church. It seemed like week by week, to the total of by that May about 44. That's adults and kids. And so we went from somewhere around a 110 and kind of dropped. We gained some as well, but it was tough. It was hard on me, hard on the people in our church. People leave for many reasons, and I'm not blaming anyone for that. God calls people away. People feel they need something maybe different for their kids, or something that they need that our church just couldn't offer. And some people moved. But it is still, it's taxing emotionally, as well as a volunteer void that does form, and that's really felt at a small church plant, and then a leadership void as well. But 2014, in the summer, we felt, me and our leadership team, that we were going to make a move from Stanley Elementary to Katy High School. And so we came to Katy High School in August of 2014, and it was very beneficial to us. Our first service, we baptized around 4 people. It was a very exciting time. God's presence was with us. He proved His faithfulness to us. We finished 2014 well. Even had a very good year in 2015. And then 2016, it was the same that happened in 2014. We began to lose people. Same reasons. This time it didn't stop in May, but it continued through September, and this time to the tune of 56 people. And when in August, this shows God's providence, and I'm very grateful for His presence with us and His protection. But in January, I made the decision to include my outside board, our board of trustees, which is Jerry Edmondson, who's at the Fellowship, and Chris Alston, who's at Clear Creek Community Church, and Michael Boyce at Christ Community Church. Great friends of mine, phenomenal men of God, very wise. And I asked them, hey, would you men journey with me? About every 2 months we could meet for just more accountability as well as just counsel. So they've journeyed with us, had journeyed with us since January. As a matter of fact, Jerry has been on our board since our church's inception. And Chris, as a best friend of mine, he's journeyed with me as I've come here and planted from Clear Creek Community Church. And so anyway, in August, we sat down. We were going through some numbers, because we hadn't met in the summer, and just going over just how I was doing and how our church was doing, and And they were alarmed, especially at the number of people who had left. And really the question was first posed to me, should we shut down our doors, start talking about what that looks like? For me, I was like, no way. I was not going to give up. God called us to Katy. He's going to plant this church and see it through. We're going to plug away. And they asked me, what are you going to do different? My only answer was, I don't know, pray more. And I went to our inside leadership team. So I've been blessed to have Mark Trulock and Jared Gayhart and Jordan Shutter walk along with me. These are men that were shepherding anyway, men that I felt could eventually be elders, and we were beginning some training with that. And I brought to them what our board of trustees had said. And these men, they wanted to stay firm and stay committed to the course. And so we did. And God really blessed our church in the fall just with some phenomenal things that we were able to do just ministry-wise. And it was a good, fruitful time. But in November, me and my PAT, our pastoral advisory team, inner team, we had a very just heart-to-heart conversation. And when that conversation was done, none of us were 100% sure that our church could turn the tide and create the momentum and really get the numbers that we needed to do the kind of ministry and sustainability that we needed. I took December, or really our whole team prayed throughout December. We're going to reconvene in January. I took some time. I didn't concentrate on anything but prayer and preaching. I didn't plan out the spring. I didn't look at sermon series and whatnot, which was very hard for me. But I took time. Psalm 27 was my theme scripture, and in there, at the very end, we're told to wait on the Lord and to take courage that He'll strengthen us during that time of waiting, and just wait on the Lord. And I did. And when my mind would go to one of planning, I just said wait. And in that time, God said I had to have peace with three things. And one was I had to have a peace if God was calling me to leave Cross Community Church, that I would have a peace with that. And I finally had a peace. The second was if I did leave the church, I would be no longer a part of the Acts 29 network. And that was tough because it's been a lifeline for me. They've been a blessing. I love Acts 29 and what they're about. They've been a blessing for my wife. But I had to say, okay, have a peace with that, Lord. And then third, if we were called to move, then I would have a peace with moving my three daughters. And I finally had a peace with that as well. I said, okay, now I didn't feel like God was doing any of those three, but those were three things that I was holding on to, and those are not reasons to keep a church open. So we hit 2017, and God was just giving me this idea of new beginning. And my prayer was that it was a new beginning here at Cross Community Church. And if not, then I was open, there would be somewhere else. It was January the 4th that I met with our pastoral advisory team. And God had as well just said, Ryan, if you're here or you go forward, there's some things that you're going to have. And one is just more of a team. I've attempted to put some teams together, and I just have not been able to do that well. I saw these men maybe as guys that I could move from just training and move them into a team that we could do some things better together, and they could more help me out. But needing rest. So I've done ministry now for 20 years. And just haven't had a good extended time of rest, and I'm beginning to feel just kind of the wear of that. And so I went into that meeting not knowing what was going to happen, and all these men, great men that I love, I knew these men love me, and they love our church, and are committed to our church and our church's mission, but didn't quite feel that even with the team or some changes that we could make, that it would be what we would need, and it was just evident that was not going to be able to happen. And so, but I said, hey, if this is going to happen, if we have to shut this church down, it needs to happen sooner than later. I didn't want to continue on and go through the month and we don't know, and have guests come in and I not know how to shepherd. And so all of us that night, we were not 100% sure or committed that this was, even if we made changes or whatnot, that this was going to actually turn the tide and work. So we had a downward progression with our church, just numbers-wise, and if that didn't change, then really we would experience a slow death in our church, and none of us wanted that. So we said, okay, I will talk to our board, and I'm going to bring to them what happened in this meeting, the things were said, and how we are feeling, and I wanted to get their advice as well. by the time I got home that night, it was about 10:30, and my wife asked me how'd the meeting go, and really God had I said, Kara, I believe He's giving me peace about two things. And I said, one, He's releasing me in my responsibility as a pastor of this church, and two, He's going to be shutting it down. And my wife said, I believe you're right. Now, it was a very emotional time for us. We cried a lot. Over the weekend, we cried even more thinking about this. And I talked to our board of trustees, and those guys who had journeyed with us, they all affirmed as well that this was the right decision. Had subsequent conversations with our pastoral advisor team, and they said, yes, this is the right decision. So we took last Friday to notify our leaders, and then Saturday with our partners of our church, and then Sunday we were able to communicate that with our church as a whole. So here's how it's working out. Our church right now, it has a great peace about it. None of us want this to happen or saw it happening or are happy with it, but we all have a peace that God is saying, hey, you've had a great run, but it's time to close this chapter, and it's not the closing of a book, but the next chapters that'll be written, we will not be together as a church for. So we're going to take the 22nd of January to be a celebration service and just have a look back along the past 6 years and celebrate what God has done, as well as just give our people an opportunity to share some stories about our church and what God has done for them through our church, and etc. And then on the 29th, it'll be our last Sunday, and we're going to gather at Katy High one more time. We're not going to set up. We're going to have a potluck breakfast, and then our partners have to vote on recommendations that we're bringing to them. So this is, we look and we say, God, we appreciate what you've allowed us to do. I've been honored with the privilege of being the pastor of this church and shepherding the countless number of people that God's brought our way. We've been able to baptize 17 people, as well as have 8 salvations. So we give God all the glory for that. Now I know some people ask, "Hey, what's next for the Praters?" Some of it I don't know, and so for the first time in my adult life, I'll be unemployed. But we have a peace that God's going to take care of us. Our church has been able to give us a severance that'll take us out a few months, and I'm very grateful about our church's generosity with that. So, but we're going to need some rest and just take some time just to decompress after the 29th. We're encouraging the members of our church to continue in their small groups and possibly go look for churches, after they have some time to rest as well. And then I'm going to just be praying and asking God to start opening the networks that I know and see what roles are out there, and if there's some lead pastor roles somewhere, and be able to gather in, and send out my resume, and then figure out what are the possibilities, God, where are you leading us, what are you wanting us to do next. And so we're excited about that, and yet we just kind of don't know. Jesus in John 12, when he's talking to his apostles, he said, when the wheat falls to the ground, it actually has to go in the ground and die for it to bear fruit. And so as we feel that as God as this dies, that we'll be able to bear fruit, I'm excited about our people who will be going to other churches, and I know that they're going to be able to be a blessing to so many churches. I've heard it said, with the death of one dream, it gives way for the birth of a new and better dream. And so we hold on to Christ tightly, believing and hoping that He has a new and better dream for us down the road. So anyway, to my church and everybody who has supported us through prayer, even financially, just been a encouragement to us. We are so grateful. And this has been just a phenomenal 6 years. It hasn't been wasted. 1 Corinthians 15:58, no work. We do not labor in vain for the Lord, so this was not done in vain. But it has been for our good and for the glory of God. So with that, thank you, and thank you for allowing me to be your pastor for these past 6 years. And may God continue to bless you all.